Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of Cabinet today, Wednesday the 5th of March. Agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence. Mr Bradbury, do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Leader. Just the one apology this morning from Councillor Pritchard.
Agenda item 2, declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Please can you declare your interests? Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the monitoring officer for the advice that he gave me on this. I'll be declaring an interest on this decision because I've been adamant in my opposition to the government's forced local reorganisation agenda that affects the borough of Newcastle-under-Lyme and the division I represent. And as leader of the Borough Council in Newcastle, I'll be presenting a report on the 19th of March, and I'll therefore leave the meeting for that reason.
Councillor Deville.
Yeah, good morning, colleagues. I've been actively involved in a campaign against a merger in North Staffordshire with regards to Stoke-on-Trent merging with Staffordshire Moorlands and Newcastle. I therefore declare this interest, but I will be staying in the meeting, Chairman, and I will, if I may, reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Agenda item number... Councillor Pert, have you got a cough?
I was just going to declare an interest rather than having a cough, but I'm pleased that you're concerned about my health. I just want to declare an interest on the first item because I am and have campaigned for Stafford not to be included within the North Staff's proposal for the unitary there. I am open-minded to other options and retain my position on that.
Are there any other declarations of interest? Agenda item 3, Devolution and Local Government Reorganisation in Staffordshire. For the record, Councillor Tagg has left the room. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my intention to read verbatim the start of this report for the record. I'm conscious of the fact that this is a matter of extreme importance to very many people, the 900,000 people across Staffordshire, so therefore I don't want to deviate from my script. I'm also conscious of the fact that many people won't have access to or won't get to read the documentation, so I think it's relevant in this case, very unusually for me, first time in 5 years, to read the actual script that's in front of me on this report. Two-tier local government works in Staffordshire. It strikes the right balance between county-wide strategic services and local council services that meet the needs of our different communities. This isn't just my view, but has always been the shared view of all local authorities in the county. The government, however, are clear. They want to see this replaced with fewer, bigger unitary councils in the future. With this in mind, and despite having just had a few weeks to prepare, we are responding proactively with an outline proposal which first and foremost aims to unlock extra powers and funding from Westminster to further boost our local economy. We are already bucking the trend, with unemployment levels and business survival rates outperforming regional averages. But our ambition is to push further on with this with the mayoral strategic authority. When it comes to local government reorganisation, our priority is to ensure that people across the whole county, and I emphasise the whole county, can continue to receive good quality, value for money services. A new Staffordshire unitary would be set up for success, streamlining services which are built on a legacy of a well-run, financially stable council, able to invest in our communities. At the same time, vital services that people depend on, such as social care, would not be dismantled with all the risk that that could entail. And I think particularly of children's services and the work we do there. As much as I do not agree with the reorganisation process, I know our residents would expect us to get involved to help inform the future of local government for the area. They would want the decisions that affect them to be shaped by the people who understand them, not by outsiders. Nothing has been agreed at this early stage, and this is just the start of a significant change that will take many years before it is complete. We will keep people informed and involved as we move through the process. The English Devolution White Paper of the 16th of December 2024 and the subsequent statutory invitation to submit proposals signal a government intent to fundamentally change local government landscape in England on a scale not seen since the early 1970s. The likely intention to introduce mayoral strategic authorities across England and to abolish the current two-tier form of local government as experienced in Staffordshire is a significant change. This report seeks to update Cabinet on the emerging national picture regarding devolution and local government reorganisation in England. The report will highlight the timetable for this process as described in the invitation for proposals for a single tier of local government and appended guidance from the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government. The report will recommend that Cabinet approves the content of the interim plan that is expected to be submitted to Government on or before the 21st of March 2025 and refers it on to the full Council meeting of the 13th of March for final consideration. In developing this report and the interim plan, we have been guided by a number of principles, and these principles will continue to guide us as we develop our plans over the coming months. Our key principle is the best interests of the residents of Staffordshire, all of Staffordshire. We will test our work and that of others against this principle. Our initial thinking and ongoing work will focus on best guaranteeing the most effective and sustainable delivery of council services. We cannot have a situation arise where something is set up to fail. It must be secure for the long term, and it must guarantee decent services for the people that we represent. Although this report states an early view on what we believe is the best option, we have not predetermined what our final proposal will be. We will take an evidence-led approach in developing our proposal, and we will consider the views of our residents, businesses and partners. People who might be watching should not underestimate the complexity of this. Wrenching apart social services, education systems, highways departments and planning systems and everything that's associated with local government is a very, very complicated thing to do. I'm not looking for sympathy, but I've been living and breathing this thing since December when the letter came out. And it is, for everybody that's been involved in it, a very stressful set of circumstances, because what we want is the best for our residents and not some change that's done on a whim, that's ill-considered, looks good on a map, but sets up for failure. We want sustainable services now and for the future. There are, and I'll go to them now and invite questions afterwards. I'll go to the recommendations so we're all clear about what we're talking about. Cabinet is going to be recommended to note the contents of the English Devolution White Paper of the 16th of December 2024, which is reproduced in Appendix A of this report. That the Cabinet notes the content of the letter from Jim McMahon MP, Minister of State for Local Government and English Devolution. That includes the Local Government and Public Involvement Act of 2007, invitation for proposals for a single tier of local government and associated guidance dated the 5th of February 2025, which is reproduced in Appendix B of the report. Approve the content of the draft interim plan as requested by the Minister of State, which is included as Appendix 3 of this report, and in doing so recommends it to full Council for its approval and subsequent submission on or before the 21st of March 2025. D. Cabinet supports the principle of seeking to submit just one interim plan for the Staffordshire and Stoke area. Cabinet therefore delegates to the Chief Executive to work with Staffordshire councils to secure the submission of one interim plan that is supported by a clear majority of councils. Any subsequent alterations to the current draft interim plan as appended to this report will only be supportable if the spirit of the key recommendations of the current draft plan are retained. I'll read that sentence again. Any subsequent alterations to the current draft interim plan as appended to this report will only be supportable if the spirit of the key recommendations of the current draft plan is retained. And I look to the monitoring officer and head of legal, Mr. Tradewell, to keep us on track with that, because there are attempts to deviate from that somewhat. E. Note the submission date of the 28th of November 2025 for the final proposal as directed in the invitation, and authorises the Chief Executive to undertake the work necessary to achieve this deadline, including any necessary financial expenditure. Subordinate to that is direct that this work will be specifically test the financial viability of all unitary council options. That's all unitary council options. Directs this work will provide reassurance that the future service provision of any unitary council will be at least to the standard provided to the residents by the current two-tier system of local government. F notes that the submission of the final proposal will be subject to further consideration and approval by both Cabinet and Council in the autumn of 2025. They are the recommendations. Before I open it up, I'd like to pay thanks in particular to the officers that have supported us to get this far. In particular, Mr. Tradewell, thank you to you. Everybody knows that you're retiring. You can't believe that just before you thought you were going to go off and do relaxing things, you had to go through this. The Chief Executive as well, and the effort that he's put into this, it's been absolutely tremendous, the amount of work that has gone into this. I'm proud of this document. It is the best effort that we've been able to pull together in the short time that we've had available to us. It is extremely stressful, but you should note the reason why I'm reading this out in such a diligent manner is that what we're proposing is seismic. This is the change to local government, the like of which we haven't seen since the early 1970s. And it's on us, it's our responsibility to ensure the services we provide to our residents continue to be delivered seamlessly. That's the second time I've mentioned that. That's the most important thing. This isn't about us as councillors. This isn't about Staffordshire County Council. This is about the residents that we look after and making sure that the services they provide continue to be as good as they are, and better if we can possibly make it that way. Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Leader. As you say, this is seismic, and it's not something that I expected that I would have to be dealing with during my time as a councillor, and frankly, particularly not at this time with the challenges that local authorities are grappling with in areas such as children's social care, adult social care, special educational needs, and the basic services that people want to see us doing, such as fixing their roads, keeping their libraries open, in other places, making sure their bins are emptied, etc. For the government to choose at this time to force a wholesale reorganisation of council areas such as ours, where services are well run, Staffordshire County Council, just in the last few weeks, passing a balanced budget because we're efficiently run. To force us to do this and to take the time of our officers, who I also pay tribute to, away from those services for this unnecessary process is disappointing, to say the least. And I hope that our residents will note that in going through this process, this is not something that we want to do. This is something that we have to do well in their best interests. And I'll just alight on that best interest point for a moment, because I think it's very clear, both in your exposition a moment ago, Leader, but also in reading the document that we've produced to drive this discussion forwards over the next 6 months, that we will be led here by what is in the best interests of Staffordshire residents. My view is that their best interests would be most served by not doing this at all, but we have to do what the government is requiring us to do in the way that is best for them within the constraints of being forced to reorganise. We've had very little time to prepare this. The government's decided to do this to a very, very fast timescale for reasons that are hard to discern. And so, in pursuing those best interests and acting in good faith, we will now interrogate the evidence over the following 6 months to make sure that the proposal that we finally present to the government is truly in the best interests of our residents. My plea to others who are involved in this process is that they adopt the same test. We'll all have starting points with this that may be a little bit different based on our preference for what the shape of local government in Staffordshire might be in the future. But I think by following the evidence, the best interests of our residents should be clear, and whatever the evidence indicates is best for our residents should be the proposal that all councils all council members and anybody else who takes an interest in this should ultimately settle on, and that's certainly what we'll be working towards achieving here, the best interests of our residents. As you say, the last time we did this was the 1970s, so this is for 50 years, as likely as not. We need to get it right. We need to follow the evidence.
Councillor Parry.
Clearly, as you've already said, Leader, this is not something which this Cabinet and this Council, this Conservative Party in Staffordshire have welcomed, have encouraged, have supported. We are reluctant to this change, but we believe if we don't grasp what the change is about, and what the change clearly is about, is that the current government desires that all areas will have a single council, known as a unitary council, that will deliver all services. What does that mean, therefore, for Staffordshire that has a two-tier system? Well, the government have insisted that the two-tier system will no longer exist, and that those councils which are district or borough councils will cease to exist at some point in the fairly near future. What does that mean for the rest of the county in terms of a unitary council? If we think about the administrative area of Staffordshire, that has always been, that is, and has been for some considerable time, considered to be a well-run council with good financial stability and good, well-run services. Similarly, all of our district and borough councils have historically, in the fairly recent past anyway, been well-run, financially sustainable councils. It demonstrates, in a sense, that two-tier systems have worked in Staffordshire well. And how can we, therefore, moving forward, take the best of that within the administrative county of Staffordshire to develop something which, in the recommendations E1 and 2, talk about testing the financial viability of whatever model we finally come up with is acceptable and achievable. And point 2, that it provides an assurance that the future service provision within the council, whatever that is, that future unitary council, will at least be to the standard provided to residents that they currently receive. That's the objective, that's the goal. So how can we in the administrative county of Staffordshire, under Staffordshire County Council currently, in the future be a unitary authority that achieves those 2 points and takes the best of what we've got and provides provides a future model that is sustainable? There's another prize here, isn't there? The other prize is devolution. Devolution is something councils have been crying out for a long time. In England, not so much, of course, in the devolved nations, but in England, we are one of the worst devolved countries in Western Europe. So it is claimed. I believe some of that. There is so much that we are beholden to central government for. So there is an opportunity of devolution opportunity within this further down the line when the unitary councils start to build and mayors become the next phase of this. There is a real opportunity for a massive prize for councils and areas under a devolved, combined, or whatever that looks like, strategic authority, to actually get that devolution prize. And we should not take our eye off that in terms of what the objective at the end of the day could be for us. So whilst we surrender in a sense and say this isn't what we want, we must grasp it and say what can we do that delivers the best for Staffordshire people.
Councillor DeVille, Councillor Sutton, then Councillor Pert.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor White, and I totally agree with your comments in your introduction. These changes are indeed seismic. It's also really, really complex. The national government are absolutely clear that they want to see this reorganisation of local government. I find that massively disappointing, and I find it unwelcome. And I think, more importantly, colleagues, our residents out there find this disappointing and unwelcome. Leader, I get, as we all do, get hundreds of emails and phone calls from local residents seeking support and help on planning issues, on healthcare issues, asking to fix the pothole on their road. I get hundreds of emails. In my job, I see hundreds of people who want to talk to me about issues that affect them and how we can improve their life. How many people do you think have come to me and said, do you know, Mark, I think it'd be a really good idea if we reorganise local government? Absolutely none. People just don't have the appetite. And I think, you know, the reaction of our local residents is more important than my reaction. It's unwelcome right across Staffordshire. Colleagues, it's an extremely uncertain world out there, isn't it? You know, all aspects of when you switch on the television, you just see uncertainty. So I would, to add to the disappointment with national government, I'd have thought that national government have got much more important things to concentrate on, rather than unnecessarily reorganising local authorities. I think the government have not got the priorities right here. But sadly, we are where we are. And the worst possible situation would be to have this done unto us. And I think that would happen. So I'm grateful for this report, and I share your thanks and add to your thanks, Leader, for the way that this has been put together very, very quickly. And I think that's another issue, the timing of this. Have we had time to really discuss this matter, to consult on this matter? No, we haven't. I particularly like in the report, and you referred to it, Leader, on a number of occasions, that this needs to be and should be in the best interest of Staffordshire people. And I think that is really, really important. And I think I shall continue looking after the best interests of the people in my area. We will continue to look after the best interests of the people in Staffordshire. So, are these proposals ideal? Absolutely not. And I may be a bit old-fashioned, but, you know, I pay close credence to the fact that if it ain't broken, don't mend it. So it's not ideal. However, is this that we're discussing today a preferred and a more palatable proposal than other proposals that are on the table at the moment? Absolutely, yes, it is. So I think in the interests of moving this forward and having further discussions about this, because it's crucially important, not just to the councils, to the people of Staffordshire, crucially important. So for those reasons, I shall be supporting these recommendations this morning.
Councillor Sutton, Councillor Pert, and then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the report. I think a lot of what I was thinking about saying has been said, so I'll keep a few points fairly short and to the point. First of all, I think we need to thank everybody for their efforts in getting us to where we are with this so far, the amount of work that must have clearly have been undertaken. Any change as we go forward will cause disruption. It will be difficult, and it will be absolutely time consuming. So I think, as others have mentioned, as long as we, and I know we will, make sure that we have the best interests of all the residents of Staffordshire clearly in mind as our complete backstop as we go forward, then I think what we do will be making the very best of the situation that we find ourselves in. And just a point that of clarity, just to emphasise, of course, that all councils within Staffordshire will cease to exist, and it's not just boroughs and districts; it's this county council as well. So thank you, Leader, very much for the report.
Councillor Pert.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning, colleagues. No one asked or voted for local government reorganisation. Based on the analysis that I've seen so far, it's of limited benefit to our residents. And I would like just to pay tribute to the enhanced two-tier working that has worked really well between ourselves and districts and boroughs over many years. Some systems work really well on a scale and a footprint, and others work better by focusing in on those local communities and local needs. To be clear, Staffordshire is a well-run council. But looking at running social services requires a footprint at scale. To try and recreate this platform or to disaggregate it in one way or another would lead to too much focus on internal matters rather than our residents, their needs and aspirations. Systems that have been built over many decades will take time and complexity to unpick and put back together again if that is what is on other people's agenda. In my view, it's a bit like an oak tree, where there is as much above the ground that is seen as is below the ground and is unseen. But I think going forwards, we need to work together, all community leaders and organisations, to set the future footprint to be the best for our residents, communities, and to deliver their aspirations. Other people's proposals have ensured the abolition of this county council, as well as the districts and borough councils within Staffordshire. And clearly that is said with a hint of regret, because the county has served its footprint, its residents, ably over many years. But I agree with the Deputy Leader that we need to follow the evidence base, not just on finance, not just based on lines drawn on maps, but also based on common culture, common history and common aspirations. And I think this report clearly signposts the way, and I look forward to seeing the debate at Council based on that.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, and I'd like to echo everything that's already been said here this morning, and this is a very difficult subject, and I think the word seismic has been used quite a few times, and rightly so. I have to say I'm really disappointed that we're having to go through this right now. We've proved time and time again that we are a very, very well-run council. We're a great model, as are most of the districts and boroughs that we work with. We've served our residents well, very well over the years, sometimes in the face of real challenge. We've managed to keep hold of our libraries and helped our communities and managed our other services very, very well, remarkably well, in fact. We've actually bucked the trend of many of the local authorities that surround us. However, we are where we are. We have to do what we have to do. We've been left in a difficult situation where we have to do this work now, on top of absolutely everything else that we're trying to do right now. So to the ends of doing what we must and what's best for the people of Staffordshire, we will have no choice but to act. As the Deputy Leader said, we will follow the evidence, and we will provide a proposal that, as always, holds our communities, our neighbours, our friends, the residents of this county in the very centre of all our attention. My hope is that with the help of our excellent team, and working with our partners and our districts and boroughs, we will get through this. It may be a really long and difficult road, and I suspect that is going to be the case. But if we can continue to do the great work that we've done as an authority over the last few years, we will get there. Who knows what that will look like at the end of this. But I really hope that we can get through this and we'll see the other side. I'd like to say thank you to the leader for all of the work that he's been doing. I know it's been a difficult time for him, as is for our chief exec and all the officers as well. And this is a great report which I'm really happy to endorse. Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, there isn't an awful lot I can add to what's already been said, other than to thank you for all the work that you've done on this, Leader, and obviously the chief exec and officers that have been involved. One of my concerns, of course, around the devolution proposals and the work that we're doing is it feels slightly that it could be a distractionary tool from the government themselves. We're currently dealing with challenges such as adult social care, which the county working really hard on, and particularly as well around children's services and the high needs block deficit that we're dealing with. And I hope that's still in the focus of the minds of national government when they're obviously going through the process of devolution and unitarisation, that these challenges are still being faced by whichever council will be left, and that I do hope that these problems will not be kicked down the road while we're dealing with devolution that has been forced upon us. So it's just for me, national government need to be mindful there are still challenges that they need to focus on, as well as the devolution programme, and particularly around the high needs block, as I've raised. But a lot of work's been put into this, and I wanted to say that I fully support the leader's recommendations.
Thank you. I just want to say a few things by way of conclusion. Excuse me. First is to emphasise the point that the Deputy Leader initially made, which was this is going to be an evidence-led process. We are going to engage with our communities. Staffordshire County Council, in its current form, will cease to exist. So when people berate us for trying to, accumulate more powers for ourselves, we are not. We are actually voting for our own dissolution by taking these proposals forward, to all intents and purposes. So there is no ego involved in this. It is a relentless focus on the best interests of the people that we represent. But I will look internally, just as my final words, and this is addressed particularly to members of staff. This period of uncertainty for you must be difficult, but be reassured that we are concerned about your futures. We are thinking about the work that you do every single day, and we need you to continue to do that work in the professional manner to which we become accustomed. Some people do work in our front lines that is particularly grueling. Grueling in terms of its physical attributes in our household waste recycling centres, grueling in terms of the burden it places upon you mentally and the workload you have in social services. So we are thinking about you, and we want you to continue to do that work. But we have to go through this process, and we will do our best to make it as seamless as possible. There will be flashes of difference, perhaps arguments between ourselves and others as we go through this. Ignore that. Continue to do the job that you do, and you do it so well, so that once we've settled this all out, we continue to deliver for our residents. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? For the record, that is unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below.